Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to explain 10 useful tricks on how to make your paintings more realistic. My name is Amanda, and in this channel you will find a lot of useful tricks and tips on how to do oil painting. Realistic paintings is not just about mimicking a reference photo as close as you can. There's a lot about the values, midtones, and choices that you make about the details that can really bring out the illusion of a real figure in your painting. If you follow these tips, your painting will look a lot more realistic. If you like my video, I do have a 100 color formula ebook that's available for download in the link below. Without further ado, let's get started. Number 1, the values have to be correct. Even if all the colors are wrong, if you have the right values, your painting can still look realistic. In any realistic looking painting, the darkness and lightness of something is the key to the illusion of light. Every person or animal sees things as how dark and how light they are. We see things as real because the light reflects off of the objects and goes into our eyes, and our mind processes the lightness and darkness of it and makes sense of what we're seeing. So without the light, we can't see anything. In order to draw or paint in a way that creates the illusion of what we normally see, we have to fully understand light and how it reacts to the surface. And that's why value is the key to realism. Number 2, don't forget about the midtones. Midtones can really make your paintings a lot more dramatic and realistic. When I started incorporating them into my paintings, my portraits instantly looked a lot more realistic. As the name implies, a midtone is a value that's in between the darkest dark and the lightest light. And when that color transitions from the shadow to the highlight, the midtone is usually a color that is very warm and with a lot of chroma. What a lot of artists end up doing is blending the dark and the light, and the subject ends up looking really flat. Midtones are areas of the surface receiving the perfect amount of lighting for their true color to show. So the key is not to blend, but instead paint every individual color separately on the plane and then smooth it out if you need to. Number 3, don't focus too much on the details and overwork them. This often happens when the artist looks too closely at the painting and try to make everything look realistic. Always paint from big to small, focusing on values and shapes before you select which details to include. Try to paint more with less. If you look at these master paintings up close, the details that they are painting in fact don't look like what they're mimicking. But when you look at the paintings from afar, they're all very beautifully rendered, realistic looking paintings. Number 4, stop thinking about how realistic your painting looks as you are painting. This mindset will prevent you from doing bold brush marks and will make you follow the outline and the drawing too closely. Any drawing under a painting is only a guideline. Great paintings usually start with a drawing, but the artist will paint over these lines and add so much more on top of the drawing. If you keep thinking about how realistic the painting is, you'll never leave the drawing. Number 5, don't think about what you're painting. Our brains naturally have a visual conception of familiar things like a face, a person, a cup, a house, a dog, or a cat, and these objects usually are very straight, symmetrical, and balanced. If you keep reminding yourself that you're painting a familiar object, your subject will end up looking like that instead of what it actually looks like in your reference. So instead, try to see your subject as blocks of shapes and values and how they all relate to each other. Then your painting will look that much more realistic and less like a familiar general object. Number 6, have a good reference photo. Sometimes paintings will look unrealistic or they're just really hard to render because of a reference photo that is blurry, that has poor lighting with off colors, or an image that's just too busy with too many subjects. So prepare your reference photo, make your edits, and adjust the lighting before you start painting so you avoid moving things around the picture later on. You want to be able to see enough of the subject, have natural and interesting lighting to work with. In any realistic painting, a good reference goes a long way because once you start the painting, it's hard to alter that afterwards. Number 7, plan your palette ahead of time and stick to the same palette through the duration of your painting. This will make your painting more realistic because your colors will be more cohesive throughout the whole painting, which makes sense in the laws of science. Whatever color that is within the sky gets reflected off of everything that the light touches. So it doesn't really matter what palette you use and what colors you choose, as long as you use the colors more than once and that you don't just add a random intense and bright color into the painting when the majority of the painting has already been established. Number 8, take breaks. My best edits in painting realistic faces have always been coming back after a break, where I can see my painting with fresh eyes. You also get less attached to everything you've worked on, so you're more open to painting over things that don't make sense. So remember, take breaks in between and take them often. Number 9, trace your drawing. Tracing will allow you to focus on the painting, which is a different skill set from drawing. This will allow you to have a realistic reference to paint with, so you don't have to worry about the placement and proportions of things in your painting. So it's a really convenient way to have a realistic reference to start with, so you can just focus on painting. Number 10, get better at drawing. Even if you are tracing, do a rough sketch of your subject before you start painting. Drawing gets underrated by a lot of artists, but it's actually the very foundational skill to a lot of art forms, including painting. Drawing is not just about outlining, but it's about describing the form, the volume, proportions, and getting to know your subject before you start painting. And your paintings will look that much more realistic if you try to hone in on this skill. So remember to get better at drawing. I hope you all found this video helpful. I'd like to know what type of struggles that you've been facing with your paintings. Let me know of any questions in the comments. My 100 color formula ebook is also available for download in the link below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.